Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taya and this is Taya's Turning Pages. As you can see, I'm back with another reading vlog. I really wanted to film a romance reading vlog that centers Black stories and Black love and just Black characters in general. And I'm so excited to read the books that I have planned for this video because they're not only sports romances, they are hockey sports romances. Now y'all know there are really not that many hockey sports romances that have Black characters at the forefront. They might be side characters, but they're never the main characters. And I really hope that this opens the door to more Black authors being able to have Black characters represented in other sports. Not just basketball, not just football. I would love to see more of hockey romances as well as F1 racing, track and field, swimming. I don't know, let's just do it all, you know what I mean? And so I just really love the fact that this is a thing now, and I'm just, again, really excited to dive into this series. I will be reading the first two books in this series. And the name of the entire series is called The St. Louis Sires. And the first book is called Goal, and then the second book is called Holding. I don't think that there are any other books published in this series just yet. I'm not sure if the author plans on publishing more or how long this series is even going to be. I just know that through Audible, there's only 2 books available right now for me to listen to. Because I have so many credits built up through Audible, I can essentially read these books for free, so I'm really happy about that. So I am going to read the synopsis for Goal, and I just can't get over this cover art. Like, oh, it's so cute, and I'm just, like I said, I'm so excited to dive into this series, y'all. Right here, the synopsis says, for Malik Jones, hockey is his wife. Everything and everyone else is his mistress, and aside. When unexpected responsibilities land in his lap, the balance of his world is disrupted, changing the way he sees everything. Trying to figure out life while recovering from trauma, Nori Knox finds herself in desperate need of the one thing Malik has to offer. In each other, they discover what neither of them expects. Love. That just sounds like it's going to be so cute, but also very emotional, so I can't wait to see the direction this goes in. Now I will say that the audiobook is only 6 hours and 12 minutes for both of these books, and a few of my moots on Bookstagram told me that this series is really good. So I am seated and I am ready to get into this and see what is giving. And even on Audible, the ratings for these books are actually really good. For Gold specifically, there are 713 ratings and it's 5 stars. And for Holding, it's only 282 ratings, but still 5 stars. Because this is an audiobook, I'm gonna have to figure out what the halfway mark is, or at least find a good stopping point so that way I can give you guys my thoughts. We'll check back in with you guys when I get further into the story and when I actually have something to say. Also, y'all, I just realized that the male narrator for Goal is the same male narrator in Kennedy Ryan's Audible book Coming Home. I love that story. I actually read that back in January and I rated that a 4.5 out of 5 stars. And I mentioned in my January wrap up that I loved the narrators for that story, specifically the male narrator. So I love the fact that he is also in this book. Okay, y'all, so I actually got to the halfway point. I got to chapter 18 and there are, let me see. Ooh, sorry, there's a lot going on. So there are 37 chapters, but there's also a bonus epilogue. But like I said, I got to the halfway point, which is like technically like chapter 18 and a half, but like we just stopped at chapter 18, okay? Okay, I have a lot of thoughts. First things first, I'm obsessed. Like, I'm actually obsessed reading this book. I've laughed out loud multiple times, got really upset, like sad or like angry or just like really empathetic for certain characters. And this is another reason why I love audiobooks so much and why I will always go up for audiobooks. Besides the convenience of them, I just really love the fact that they really bring you an immersive experience when you're reading, and you can truly get lost in the story in ways in which you can't when you're reading a book physically. Now, I'm always love a physical copy. I'm always gonna be a physical copy girly, obviously, but I do love a good audiobook, especially when you can tell that the publishers and the authors put care and time into the audiobooks as well as the narrators. The man who narrates Malik's character, his name is actually Jacoby Demi, and he is the narrator in a lot of Kennedy Ryan's books, not just Coming Home, but he also, I think, voiced Josiah's character in Before I Let Go, and I think he also might have voiced Keenan in Hookshot. I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure he voiced a few male MCs in Kennedy Ryan's books, and I totally understand why he's the chosen one, so we will get into him a little bit later. I did just want to say that right off of the bat. I'm gonna try my hardest to not have spoilers, but at the same time, when it comes to these reading vlogs, I really do like to give you guys my full thoughts, and I really like to expand on those thoughts since I love to talk so much. So I will try my best to not spoil anything, but if there are spoilers, I'll obviously put timestamps on the screen so that way you can skip to the non-spoiler parts. Also real quick, let me just take out my Invisalign because I'm noticing my lisp and I hate it. Y'all see, I'm like really comfortable up in here, as I should be, okay? I got the blanket and everything going. Sorry, my iPad is just like in the way. Anyways, finally getting into my thoughts on this book. I already had thoughts on the prologue. Now I'm not gonna lie, this is probably gonna be a little bit intense, and this is a thought that I have to put it on the flow, okay? Like word lotto, put it on the flow. That's what I have to do with this thought that I'm about to say, because Alexandria House came out the gate swinging with this story. So first things first with the prologue. I just think that it's really wild that people, but specifically men, can just opt out of parenthood whenever they want. And I'm not saying that one group or one demographic should be able to do it over the other. I just think that it's really wild that it is so commonplace and so normalized for men to be able to kind of just like abandon their families. That being said, I just really sympathize with Malik's character already, because no one deserves that. No child deserves that, especially a young man who is coming of age and trying to figure out life, not having his father or a father figure really help guide him through these changes and transitions that he's going to have throughout his adolescence and young adulthood. It's just really sad to me. I think Jacoby Demi, the narrator for Malik, did a really great job at capturing just the pain and the melancholy and just the detachment that Malik had when he found out that his father was pretty much going to, you know, kind of exit his life. And it just really made me sympathize with Malik, as well as just real life people, you know, people that have had their parents, but specifically their fathers, just abandon them or walk out of their lives. So I did want to comment on that, because that was literally the first thing that you're introduced to when you start this story, is just that revelation. And I just think it's important to talk about it. I understand that things in life happen, and that at the end of the day, things might not always work out with the person that you once envisioned spending the rest of your life with, especially if children are involved. I understand that shit happens, but at the same time, I do feel like that should not have an impact on your ability to be a parent, in my opinion, and to just making sure that your child still feels loved, cared for, and seen and validated. I don't know, like, I just feel like this shouldn't be such a controversial take, but I noticed that a lot of the times on social media it is. Obviously there are certain situations where it's going to be difficult for someone to, you know, parent effectively if they're dealing with depression or mental health issues or addiction or whatever the case is, like something like that. Obviously I understand in that sense, but if you're able-bodied and there's nothing essentially wrong with you, and you just don't really want to be a part of your child's life anymore because you started another family with someone else, no, absolutely not. To the larger point here, I just felt really bad for Malik. I sympathized with him. Honestly, from that prologue, I could already tell that, oh yeah, Malik is going to be the type of character, I'm sure, that is going to need some therapy and really work through some deep-rooted issues, especially because this happened during such a pivotal time in his life of him coming of age. But with that to the side, I do want to speak about Malik's character overall and just how I feel about him so far. I really do enjoy his character, and I think that he's really funny and just so like smooth. So I had to change the angle because of course the cell phone ring light I was using died. That thing dies so quickly and it gets on my nerves so fucking bad. But all in all, I really like Malik's character so far. I really hope that there will be some chapters that explores him getting some professional help. I also just can't wait to see him come out of his shell a little bit more and for us to learn more about him, just because he does seem very closed off and very reserved, which makes total sense. But again, I really can't wait to get further into the story and see how his and Nori's romance is going to impact him and his personality specifically, and how it's going to make him, I'm sure, come out of his shell more. I actually really love Nori's character, and I also love the audiobook narrator for her character, and her name is Nicole Small. I think that Jacoby and Nicole are perfect for this story, and I really love the synergy and just the teamwork between the two. I feel like the chemistry is there. But going back to Nori's character, similar to Malik, my girl needs some therapy. She really needs to work through some issues that she has as well, and she's aware of that, and she's more, I think, open to the idea of therapy than Malik is, which I feel like also kind of tracks and parallels real life, because I feel like a lot of the times that's how it is in the Black community. I do feel like there's still a certain stigma that surrounds mental health and just getting professional help and going to therapy that a lot of Black men harbor, but also just society in general harbors. No matter your background, no matter what you look like, where you come from, I just think that everybody could benefit from therapy. We're all dealing with things, we're all trying to unpack issues that we have, and I just think that, again, everybody could benefit from therapy. But obviously there's a lot of factors that go into that, and obviously can prevent people from accessing therapy. I just wish that there was a affordable and reasonable way for everybody to have access to it. obs. Anyways, going back to Nori specifically, I felt so seen when she was talking about her own personal trauma. Nori is actually a 3rd grade teacher. She had no choice but to quit her job, and to quit it so soon. She was faced with the real reality of mass shootings and how a lot of the times those, you know, take place at schools. And I just felt for her, but I also felt for us in the real world. I totally understood where she was coming from when she was talking about her anxiety and how she just can't really handle being in large crowds or really just being out in a very public open space because of the possibility of a madman or woman coming into that space and just causing damage and harm to innocent people. And the fact that that is our reality, especially if you live in the US, it's just so heartbreaking and so sad that, yeah, that's really how it is. You can tell that she is just a non-confrontational gal. Like, she does not really like to get into it with people. So she just seems so nice and so, like, I don't want to say timid, but it just seems like she is just very kind and that you will want to be around. I think that her and Malik make sense, and I feel like they're a great match for one another. Even though I haven't encountered any smut yet, the tension is tensioning. Now that leads me into my next point of how great these two work together. The dialogue, eating. Oh my goodness, Alexandria House is a fantastic writer. Love how authentic this story feels, and that really is because of the dialogue. And I feel like this is what us, specifically Black readers, mean when we say like we want to be represented in stories, properly represented in stories. I just feel like Alexandria House has the dialogue down to a T. Obviously, Black people are not a monolith. We all come from different walks of life, but at the same time, I do feel like there are certain cultural nuances that we just understand and that we just get. And there's just certain things that are specific to our community and our culture. I do feel like dialect and dialogue, of course, is one of the biggest things. Just really love the fact that that is really shining through in this story, and that it feels real and authentic, and it doesn't feel like it's forced, it doesn't feel like a caricature, and it doesn't feel like it's overdone. Like, it just feels like a very seamless, natural part of the story, and that's what I'm talking about, and that's what I'm looking for. Because I feel like sometimes when certain books that have Black characters get published, like traditionally published, they obviously go through rounds of edits just like every other author's book. I do feel like sometimes these publishers, because of the nature of the world and the nature of the publishing industry, I do feel like a lot of the dialogue and that dialect and that vernacular can get watered down. I just feel like with this book, you don't have that. This is an indie book, and so obviously Alexandria House has more creative reign and free reign on the story. But for me, when I'm reading a story about Black characters and Black love or whatever the case is, I do pay attention to the dialect and the dialogue. I'm not saying that Black books in particular have to always have slang or only have slang in it. I do think that there should be a balance of the two. And I feel like a lot of the times with traditionally published books, it's not always like that. There isn't always that fair balance. So yeah, this segues me into my next point of I like the fact that Alexandria House is not holding back when it comes to presenting the reader with a lot of real world themes and topics. And I know that can be a bit much for some people, especially if you're just looking for a true, like, pure fluffy escapist sports romance. Then again, I can understand why these topics would be a lot to handle and a lot to deal with. For me, I really love a good emotional, hard-hitting romance story. Now, I still love my fluffy, mindless, smutty rom-coms, okay? Like, y'all know I gets down. Like, I love those types of books and I always will, but at the same time, I really do love a good emotional, hard-hitting story. Okay, now with all of my serious thoughts, I guess, out of the way, let's move into the fun stuff. So first things first, Tasha. We gotta talk about Tasha. We have to talk about Miss Girl because y'all, whoa, like, she's a little scary. Tasha's Malik's fiance. I was not expecting her character to be as callous and just like mean as she is, but here we are. This is where I kind of look at Malik a little bit like, this is why you need to go to therapy, sir. Because if you would have went to therapy, you might have been able to clock the red flags that Tasha has presented very early on. She is a walking red flag, to be honest. Especially when Jules and Junior get introduced into the story, I was flabbergasted at the way this woman was acting. I know that there are people that do act like this, like in real life, which is just so like, and we'll get into that, but the way in which Tasha goes about treating these kids and just the idea of these kids is just not right. It really isn't. Now, I understand that Tasha did not sign up for this. She did not sign up to take on Malik's siblings as her own and raise them, but at the same time, neither did Malik. And also at the same time, if you want to take it a step further, those kids did not sign up to be in this position, and that's who I really feel for. That's who I actually feel bad for, are the kids, are Jules and Junior, because they are innocent, truly innocent in this situation. And it's just really upsetting that Tasha is so wrapped up in her own world and so selfish and so mean that she can't see the bigger picture here and can't understand that, hey, these are essentially two orphans and your spouse now has guardianship over them. And instead of you being supportive as best as you can, and instead of you trying to work through this new normal, you're just being nasty, resentful, and bitter, and it's just not helping the situation at all. It's actually making life harder for you and Malik and the kids. And it doesn't need to be. Like, it does not need to be that difficult, but Tasha is making it that difficult. And this is really where I looked at her like, oh, this is a character flaw. I understand that some people genuinely do not want to have kids, and that is totally fine, but I do think that it is a bit strange when people have a actual like disdain for children. I'm sorry. I do think that it is a bit strange that people are outwardly loud and proud about the fact that they hate children. Like, that they genuinely do not want children to exist, or they don't want children to be in any space that they're in. And I just feel like that is so, one, unrealistic, but also it's just like nasty, because it's like, you yourself were a child once. You know what I mean? Like, you were a child once. And again, to be outwardly loud and proud about it and like shouting it from the rooftops that you hate children, I think it's and so the fact that Tasha has those traits, and the fact that she's like walking around the house, again, just being very cold and distant towards the kids, not even speaking to them, not even looking in their direction, or if she is looking in their direction, it's because she has like contempt or resentment or just bitterness on her face. I don't think that that's fair. Do you think that they wanted to just have their lives uprooted and turned upside down, and now moving in with someone that is technically their brother, but they don't know them? Like, they're virtually a stranger to them? Like, do you think that this is what they want? Especially with them being so young, because I think Junior is 10 and I think Jules is maybe 8, I'm pretty sure. And so it's like, they are literally under the age of 13. This is a lot for them. They're going through so many changes, so much uncertainty. They still even haven't really had the chance to work through their own grief and their own feelings and processing what's really going on. And so I genuinely do not like her character. It's not even about, oh, I like Nori better, so I'm like Team Nori, I want her to be with Malik. It's like, no, you're not a good person. Like, you are actually not a good person. I know I just went on a whole rant about Tasha and how I don't like her, but like, it had to be said. And I also see through her, but I don't want to wake that tea up yet. I just feel like she has her own agenda and personal motives as to why she's really with Malik, because it's not giving that they're compatible. It's not giving that. So yeah, the internal monologues that he has about Tasha with himself, you can tell that he's not fully 100% for her. It feels like it's still clearly not enough for him to fully like cut that, you know, attachment from her. Life isn't black and white, at least not in my opinion. And sometimes people really do either have to have tough love, or they have to see things with their own eyes, like up close and personal, so that way they can really like use discernment and understand like, oh, this is actually not a good relationship. This is actually very toxic, or oh, this person is actually not a good person, or at least not a good person for me. So like, let me remove myself. So like, I get that, but I don't know. I do feel like sometimes with these books, and romance books in particular, I do feel like we are introduced to characters that are so glaringly like terrible characters, and it feels comical to have the main character not see it. There might be a time where you have to step up as a partner and make sacrifices on your end to making sure that your partner feels supported and validated and loved. And in this moment, Malik needs that. And for Tasha to kind of just like not give a fuck, it's crazy. For you to kind of have this like expectation for him to choose you over them, like literal innocent children who are his siblings.
You're unwell.
And then the last thing that I wanted to say is really my only critique that I have so far about the book is that I feel like there's not that much talk of hockey, which is so like funny to me that I'm even calling this out, because I am not a sports girly. I do not sit down and watch the games for anything really. I think it's really funny that I love sports romances so much, and even funnier that I'm calling out the fact that I feel like there's not a good balance of personal aspect and the romance aspect and the actual sport of hockey, which I know for some people is great and that's what they prefer. I'm not saying that we have to get super technical, but I would like a little bit more, especially because we don't have that many black sports romance books that fall into the hockey genre. So I'm hoping that either when I get further into the story that will change, or at least maybe when I get to the second book, I'm hoping that'll be a bit more of a focal point. Those are all of the thoughts that I have on this book so far. I will check back in with you guys with my final thoughts when I get to the end. It's been a couple of days since I last checked in with you, but I finally finished Gold. In terms of my rating, I am going to give it a 4 out of 5 stars. I think that this book is a breath of fresh air. Just because I did rate it a 4 out of 5 stars and I said that doesn't mean that I don't have critiques about the book, because I definitely do. So overall, my thoughts and opinions about Nori have not changed since the beginning of the book. Like I said before, I really liked her character. I resonated with her in a lot of different ways, and that rang true throughout the rest of the story. I really wish that there was more of a focus of Nori really healing and trying to get proper therapy, just because she went through so much throughout the story. I also think that that would have helped flesh out her character more and gave her a bit more dimension. But overall, really enjoy Nori's character. Now moving on to Malik. As I said before in the beginning of the vlog, I really did and I still do like his character. I thought that he was actually very layered and multifaceted. It was just really nice to be able to kind of see how he thought about things and how he approached certain topics and discover discovering his love and his feelings for Nori was also just very precious and very cute. And of course, I really love the way in which he interacted with Jules and Junior. And I didn't mention this earlier, but I also love the way in which Nori interacted with the kids, and with her being a teacher, it makes sense. They came together and really showed Jules and Junior as much support and love and care that they needed. And I think that Alexandria House did a great job at crafting Jules and Junior's as characters. I don't think I really mind when kids are included in romance stories. I think what I don't really care for is the surprise pregnancy trope, and that's a trope that I know a lot of readers don't like, and I will say that that's not really my favorite because it definitely does change the dynamic of the story. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Tasha was a good villain. It's a shame that she turned out to be the character that she turned out to be, but she was a good villain. It's just not fair that Nori specifically had to take the brunt of Tasha's wrath because of Malik. But at the same time, Tasha was also dead wrong for how she treated Jules and Junior specifically. That was really my main gripe with her. And this was something that bothered me, I would say, about Malik's character and really Tasha and Malik in general, is that there were a few moments where Tasha tried to plead with Malik and get back in his good graces and get back together with him. And she said things like, oh, do you not want to get back together with me because of how I treated the kids? And Malik had the audacity to say, no, that's not it. And I just think that's very bizarre because, sorry, that really should be it. That should be the main reason. Now, getting into Nori and Malik's relationship, as well as just the plot and the story overall and like the romance, if you were in the market for a really steamy, smutty book, definitely look into this one because Nori and Malik get down. They don't play. While I did enjoy Malik and Nori's romance and them officially getting together, I do feel as though it was a bit rushed and sometimes it was kind of all over the place. I do feel like the beginning of the book was definitely different than the middle and the end of the book. I felt like in the beginning there really was a lot of setup and a lot of world building. I felt as though I was going to get this slow burn romance when it came to Nori and Malik, especially because Tasha was still involved in the mix, and then obviously Jules and Junior coming into the story. I just felt like, oh, it's going to be some time before we actually get those scenes with Nori and Malik. But I felt like they happened actually pretty fast. I just felt like with the amount of things going on in both of their personal lives and then obviously collectively, I just felt like we could have spent more time sorting that stuff out and trying to work through all of that and then try to focus on actually embarking on a relationship. Obviously this story is a bit shorter because this audiobook was only like 6 hours. I understand that this is going to move at a quicker pace. I don't know. I just felt like the pacing for their relationship was just a bit off. I felt like they both went through so much throughout this story and there were still more things happening, and it just felt like there was just a lot of trauma dumping throughout certain parts of the story. I felt like when we got those trauma dumps, we didn't really spend enough time on actually working through them and really like processing them and understanding why this is impacting the story and why this was even included in the story in the first place. And then the last thing that I wanted to say, and just the other critique that I had that I already brought up earlier in the vlog, is that I still felt like there wasn't that much of a balance between romance and the emotional aspects and the personal aspects and hockey. I would have liked if there was just a bit more time spent on fleshing out the hockey world and just what the St. Louis Sires universe is. And to be honest, that's one of my favorite parts of sports romances, is really getting to explore the dynamic of the team and how everybody is with one another and how everyone's friendship and dynamic evolves throughout the series. And so I hope that in the second book, Holding, that there will be more of that explored. Those are really all of my thoughts. Again, just to remind you, I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars, and overall I really did enjoy this book, and it was just a breath of fresh air, and I'm just so excited to see how the series is going to evolve and what's to come for the rest of the characters. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next book, which is called Holding, and similar to Gold, this audiobook is only 6 hours and 11 minutes, and right here the synopsis says, childhood neighbors, enemies, best friends, lovers, enemies, Sires Lyman, Terrence Ford, and his ex-wife Crystal have meant all these things to each other. Once believing their union was indestructible, they find themselves unhappily apart. Maybe what they see as an ending is really the beginning of a stronger bond and a deeper understanding of what love really is. Holding is a novel that offers intimacy, healing, and forever. Very excited to dive into this one, especially because you are introduced to Ford's character in Gold, and Ford is definitely the comedic relief throughout Gold. There were so many moments where Ford and Malik would talk to one another, and Ford had me cracking up. I knew that there was more to him and his story, really using women and just hockey in general to really try to take his mind off of Crystal and his failed marriage with her. Y'all know I love a second chance romance, and this cover is absolutely adorable. Crystal looks like she means business and stands on business. And I see that my guy Jacoby DM narrates Ford's character, so that's gonna be interesting. I hope I don't have a hard time separating him from Malik. And the woman that is voicing Crystal is Wesley Chauvin. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. see, it's another day and we're in a new location, but I wanted to close this vlog out and give you guys my final thoughts on Holding. I didn't check in with you guys when I got to the halfway point. I'm just going to give you my collective thoughts right now, and honestly I think it's better this way because when I went back to edit this video, I noticed that this vlog was so long with just the footage that I had from Goal. So I'm really gonna try to speed this up and make this quick. First things first, I want to start out with the characters because I feel like that just sets the tone. I'm really just going to speak to the ones that the story was really focusing on, and that was really Ford and Crystal. I thought that she was such a complex female MC. She really felt like one of those down-to-earth, around the way girls that, you know, everybody is just like really cool with and has no problem with. Like, that's the vibe that she gave me. Okay, now getting into Ford, I actually really enjoyed his character. You could tell that even though Malik and Ford are best friends, they definitely are like foils at the same time in terms of like personality wise, whereas like Malik is very serious and very stoic, whereas Ford is very goofy and he's very just like youthful. Ford really tries to not let life get to him, but I really loved his friendship with Malik. I thought that him and Malik had a really good dynamic, and the way that they supported each other, you could just tell that they were like bros for life. I love when friendships are also an integral part of a romance story because it really just adds so much more layer and depth to every character involved, and also just the story in general. So I really like that, and I can't wait to see more of these friendships within the hockey team and also just between their girlfriends and their wives. One of the very first things that stuck out to me, I liked how Alexandria House explored the friends to lovers trope in this book. I think having flashback chapters when it comes to friends to lovers is truly like one of the best ways that you can execute the story, in my opinion. I really like to be able to see how the characters got to know one another and how their relationship or dynamic led them to whatever point you get to in the story, like in the present day timeline. Ford is such a jokester, but when it came to Crystal, he did not play. He did not play about his girl. And exactly, like, period. Another thing that caught my eye and made me bust out laughing when I was reading the story was the fact that Alexandria House included Black Twitter topics. I was hollering. There was a moment where Crystal was trying to put herself out there and date again. She was on these dates with these guys and they were pretty much like saying to her,
"What do you bring to the table? Are you a high value woman?" Etc,
etc. And when I tell you guys, I got triggered because I'm one of those people that is chronically online, and Twitter does fall into that for me, unfortunately. I'm trying to like cut back because that app is just... we're not gonna get into it. Like, if you know about Twitter, then you know about Twitter, right? But I am on Twitter pretty frequently, and so I see these topics every single day. I see somebody asking these questions or asking about $200 dates, or again, what do you bring to the table? And it's just, it's so unserious. Like, how many more times are you guys going to keep spinning the same talking points, the same conversations over and over again on the TL? And then another thing that I have to call out, of course, is the narration. Female narrator for Crystal, Wesley Shobin. I thought that her voice and her storytelling fit Crystal's character very well. And then of course on the flip side, you have Jacoby DM. Okay, like, no matter who his co-narrator is, he always has like great chemistry with whoever the female MC like narrator is. I noticed that Alexandria House really likes to include emotional and hard-hitting topics in her romance stories. So I just really liked all of the mental health themes and topics that were included in this book. I just feel like Crystal's story could really help resonate with so many different readers. And that was something that I noticed when I was looking through the reviews, that a few people mentioned that and talked about how Crystal's character really helped them feel seen and felt validated. And after finishing both of these books, but especially Holding, I realized that if you are a fan of 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, I think you'll be a fan of Holding because there were talks about mental health, upbringing, and I just felt like I was able to draw a few comparisons from both books. Now moving on to my critiques, it's honestly the same critiques that I had for Gold. It's really just some of the pacing, and also even with this book, I just felt like we didn't spend too much time with Ford and the rest of the team really playing hockey or really getting into that world. But other than that, I really enjoyed Holding. Again, I really enjoyed all of the themes that Alexandria House explored in this story, and I also really love the fact, again, that we have a Black hockey romance series. Like, I can't get over that. Like, I love it, and I just love to see it. But I would like to see these types of books get mainstream backing and publisher house backing, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to give these stories and these authors the exposure and the resources that they need to continue to create these stories. I want to give this a 4 out of 5 stars. I cannot wait to read more by Alexandria House in the future. I do have a few of her books on my Black Indie Romance TBR, and I actually made a video last year about some of the books that are on my Black Indie Romance TBR. Now, did I get to any of those books? No, but I hope to get to them soon, sometime this year. We'll see. But I'll definitely leave that video linked up above just in case you want to check out what books I included in that video. But I know I have a few of her books that I need to get to, and I'm just really happy that this was like my introduction into her work, and so now I know what to expect. Well, those are all of my thoughts on both book 1 and 2 in the St. Louis Sire series, with the first book being Goal and the second book being Holding by Alexandria House. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know down below if you've read anything by this author before, if you have read these books. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Definitely make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me and my channel out. And lastly, please make sure you follow me on Bookstagram as well as Storygraph. I will leave all of that information linked down below, as well as at the end of the video like I always do. I will see you guys in my next video.